Hello, good morning. It is Sunday, March 23rd, and we have so much to talk about in every way. I read a lot. I watched two movies and a TV show. I finished a TV show. I didn't watch it entirely last week. And I got a lot of books. So the TBR takedown is not like going so hot. Because this stack is definitely bigger than this stack, and this stack also has 3 DVDs in it. But it is what it is. So first up, what I read and watched. I did rewatch Detention. So this is a movie I've seen before. It's a movie that I remembered enjoying, and it was on my DVD rack forever. Like I watched this, I think first maybe 2020, 2021. And I was curious, so I threw it in my stack to rewatch, and it's so fun. It's very 2011. You gotta understand that. So this movie follows this group of teenagers at this high school, and the best way to describe this is that they have to go back in time to stop the world from ending, sort of, but it's also like they're in detention, and the main character is this girl who is very not cool in a very 2011 kind of way, so she's very quirky. I don't know, it's very 2011. It's got lots of like fourth wall breakage. It's a horror comedy. Lots of really stupid kind of, I don't know. As somebody who was like a 14 in 2011, I really enjoyed it because I thought it was kind of very, very fun. I understand how it's not going to be for everybody, but I did rewatch it and it was just as fun as I remember. So that's fantastic. That's super fun. I enjoy it. So the next thing I read, Garth by. So this is a short story that was sent out from Book of the Month, where they did this a couple. I think they have a lit mag out now. But if you are a Book of the Month subscriber, sometimes you can get a short story in your Book of the Month for free. And I'm no longer a Book of the Month subscriber because I don't subscribe to anything because of that thing. But I do have some of these hanging around in the book wall. And what Garth is about, it's a short story, so I'm not gonna say a whole bunch. But it is about this woman who's kind of really desperately trying to hold on to some of her high school friends. And she is very much behind economically. And she's living kind of a bohemian kind of life situation. She's got 2 kids, but they don't really make a ton of money, and they don't really subscribe to a lot of the very traditional Americana white picket fence stuff. Her and her husband don't. But when her like childhood best friend is having a baby, she feels like she should be more involved than she is. And honestly, I wanted to choke the main character because she was just ridiculous in a lot of ways. Like a lot of her complaints just seemed like you also have to communicate situation. I don't know. I'm sure there's something more here, but this is the kind of literary fiction that I sometimes have a lot of trouble with. I did read it. What did I give it? I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. All right, then I watched another movie. I watched Night of the Creeps, which is a kind of another horror comedy, I suppose. It's from the 80s, and it follows these 2 college students, and they are very much not cool. We have the only one whose name I remember is JC. We have JC Hooper and his friend who is less interesting but lives longer. But they end up in a misguided attempt to steal a dead body to impress a frat because the friend whose name I can't remember wants to impress a girl. They kind of set this virus out. It's like a Animorphs kind of thing. This is really a very, very good precursor to Slither, honestly. Night of the Creeps is. So I suppose Slither is a better thing to describe it as an Animorphs thing. Yeah. My only note is that JC should have lived longer. He was interesting, he was funny, and I loved him. But he didn't. But this is it was fun. I had really high hopes for this one, and it didn't quite meet them. But I think the hopes might have been too high here. We did also, it was very interesting visually. I don't know, like the hopes were too high. I think that was the thing. But it was still good. It was still a good movie. I did watch it. All right. After that, I reread my favorite book of all time. That is Glamorama by Bret Easton Ellis. I love this book. This is what I was reading through most of the week. And so honestly, the fact that I finished this on Thursday and that I read 4 more books after that is pretty amazing. But Glamorama is the best book ever written. Anyway, let's talk about plot. Okay. On a base level, the plot of Glamorama, we follow model aspiring actor Victor Ward. And he is living in New York City. He has a famous model girlfriend, but he's also sleeping with his boss's girlfriend on the side. He's constantly chasing new women as a kind of attempt to cover up some kind of bisexual agony in there. But that's getting a little bit too deep. When he realizes that things are kind of starting to go a little bit wrong. Victor, I believe semi-performatively, is absolutely stupid. And this book is really about perception being reality, because we do originally, like at the beginning, first third of the book, Victor is the biggest idiot you've ever seen. And then that becomes why people want him, why these people want him around. Because when we, okay, there's a lot going on in this book. When we get to the real plot action, it turns out that Victor is ends up being chosen to work for this group of like supermodels and actresses and actors who blow things up. And if that sounds like Zoolander, it's because there was actually some like rumbles when Zoolander came out, because they're like, that's fucking Glamorama. But when you get to that point, like Victor is, you see that he is he's got a better head on his shoulders than you might think, or than he kind of presents to the world. He also, I mean, he did get a bachelor's degree, and he must have been good enough as a child that his father thinks he can make it through law school. His father is also a U.S. senator, and I do think that the main crux of this whole thing is Victor and his father not being satisfied with his son, because Victor is a party boy, ultra sexual. He's a male model, and he has a conversation with his dad at the beginning of the book. He has lunch with him, and it is kind of portrayed as like the worst thing that happens to Victor on a weekly basis. Not that it's weekly, but in a semi-regular basis, is having lunch with his father. And then we do get a kind of a flashback chapter from when he met Chloe Burns, who was his girlfriend, at the beginning of the book. And he was a lot more casual about stuff. Like in the first chunk of this, he is like very like anti, like people keep like suggesting, because he's a male model, people keep suggesting that he's like sleeping with or dating men, and he's like, I never do that, that's stupid, I would never do that. And in the flashback, he's very casual about it. So I do think that there's a lot of that is I'm getting too deep into it. I love Glamorama. I love Victor. I love the themes. I love the fact that he's in hell the entire time. He really is. We've got the fact that it's constantly freezing cold all the time. Victor's always talking about how cold it is. There's flies everywhere. It smells like shit. I love Glamorama, and I don't have the time here to talk about Glamorama. I'm sure that was a very like bleh, like there's nothing there when I was talking about it, because it's just everything kind of mashed up, because it's so hard to talk about Glamorama because there's so much going on. This is my first Bryce Nellis book, and it was the third time I've read it, and I love it so much. 5 out of 5 stars. It's my favorite book of all time. All right. Then I read a book that was the first book in a long time that's made me like sob. Like I tear up pretty easily at books, but I haven't like sobbed at a book in a while. I think the last time was maybe one of the times I reread Beartown recently. I don't remember. But I did read Under the Rainbow by Celia Lasky. And this book has a lot of very mixed reviews. From straight queer people alike. And one thing that I do want to point is that I don't know how many of these people have lived in a rural town in a red state, you know? But this follows a bunch of different people. It's got snippets from a bunch of people in this town. And follows the town that was named the most homophobic town in the United States, just based on data, based on tweets, whatever, based on everything. And so this task force comes in there to try and like force acceptance. And it's a lot. I liked it. I thought it was a good book. I thought it was a good book. I think that it gets a lot of vitriol that it doesn't deserve. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it made me cry. The Linda chapter is what made me cry. Like I read the Linda chapter, I closed the book and I burst into tears. But there are other like Zach hurt me. Zach hurt me inside. And Gabe hurt me. Gabe hurt me inside. And honestly, I think that Avery is the first chapter, and she is a teenage girl. And there's a lot about Avery that's very frustrating. And so I could see where when we start with Avery, I can see where people don't like it because she's very frustrating in a very teenager kind of way. And it's, you know, it's hard to read her chapter, especially at the end. I did give this 5 out of 5 stars, like I said, and I do think it is worth your time. All right. After that, I read the first volume of Tokyo. I should say reread. I read this, I believe, when I was in high school or like early college. I watched the anime when it was coming out. It was very good. I'm trying to find a good picture to show you for the art style. How about this? This is a horror manga following this boy in this world where there are ghouls, which are like human-like creatures that do feed on human flesh. And so one day when our main character, Kaneki, is walking home from a date, he gets attacked by a ghoul, and unfortunately, he gets kind of a transplant of like ghoul internal organs into him. So he's like half ghoul, so he's trying to kind of straddle the line. And honestly, the first time I read this first volume, I wasn't super into it. I had watched the series and I liked it, but I wasn't super into the manga. But this time I think I'm gonna keep it around, and I might. I mean, right now I'm trying to kill the book wall. It's not going very well, as you'll see when I get to the book haul portion of this. But I think I want to continue on, honestly. I do have the anime on DVD now as well, so I can rewatch the first season and continue on. But no, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a very good story. Hide is like the love of my life. I love Hide. But I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. All right. Okay. Speaking of anime, I did finish up the first season of Horimiya. I know that there's more. I don't know if it's another season or if it's like a movie. But I've seen lots of clips about Iora and his and his like little sister's friend that were not in this. But Horimiya is absolutely adorable. It is the cutest manga series I've ever seen in my entire life. It is Nozaki without the funny, basically. But Horimiya follows these two high school students, and they are like as different as anybody can be. Like, we've got Hori, who is this very like go-getter. She's very popular. She is very smart. She's very responsible, and we learned that she's very much like parentified at home. Like, she takes care of her little brother because her mom's always working and her dad is a deadbeat. And Miyamura is very closed off, and he doesn't really seem to have any friends, and he seems very gloomy. But one day they run into each other outside of school, and it is the cutest. Goddamn, I love this series so much. It is so cute. It's so cute, and I just Miyamura makes me so. But they're so good together. They're so good together. And we got a bunch of fun side characters. Like I mentioned, Iora. I love Iora. I think he's fun. I think it's hilarious how like outgoing he is at school and how like kind of annoying. And then when he gets home, he's just absolutely like straight-faced deadpan. And there's a scene at the very end where his little sister like meets him outside of school, and she sees how he acts at school, and then he just immediately goes to when it's just them, and she's just like, is this my brother? Who is this? It's very fun. But no, very good. Very much worth your time if you're looking for a good like romance anime. This is a good one. All right, 2 more books. And they were both... This one's hard. Okay, we'll just have to do that. We'll just do that. That'll do. Okay. Okay. That'll do. And they're both very large. And both of these I finished in like one day. Like, I finished the first one on Friday and the second one I read on Saturday. But the first one I did reread City of Bones. And this was like the first young adult book I'd ever read. City of Bones is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series, which is the first series in the long-running Shadowhunter Chronicles by Cassandra Clare. And City of Bones, we follow this girl Clary Frey as she learns about this kind of other world that lives alongside the regular human world. And in this world are these Shadowhunters, which like kill demons and stuff. And also her mom gets kidnapped, and she learns that she's like maybe a shadow hunter. It's really rough, honestly, especially the first little bit. Like the first maybe quarter of the book, I was like, oh my god, this is terrible. But the farther in I got, the more I think nostalgia happened. Also, Alec was in it more, and Alec is like the love of my life. I love Alec. But no, this is really rough. It's a really rough start to a series. And I understand how 5th grade Aurora was really into it, because of course she was. This book also does hold the honor of being the very first book I ever read with a gay character. It was City of Bones, because it was born in 1997. But no, I did read it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars on the reread. I am interested in rereading the entire series in order. I'm not gonna lie, because I read the entire Mortal Instruments series. I read the entire Infernal Devices series. I read some of the like novella short story collections. I read the Bane Chronicles. I read Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, and I also read the first in the Alec and Magnus books. Oh, and did I read Tales from the Shadow Market? I might have. Or was it just Shadowhunter? I don't remember. I don't even remember. I read the first Dark Artifices book too. But I'm interested to reread the series in order. I'm interested to like get my hands on City of Ashes and then read City of Ashes and then go so on and so forth. So I'm gonna have to like look up like a reading order for this so I can reread it in the best order possible. But I give it 3 out of 5 stars. All right. So the last book that I read last week, which I read entirely yesterday. I had like 4 hours in the car, and this book was so fast to read, even though it's like 500 pages long. That is Darkroom Etiquette by Robin Rowe. So Darkroom Etiquette is, Robin Rowe wrote A List of Cages a while back, and that was a very kind of dark foster care situation. And this book has a lot of similar stuff going on. So we follow Sayers Waite, who has the stupidest name in the world, and that is mentioned in the book. That's very stupid, but honestly, in today's climate of naming, I would be surprised. But Sayers is a very privileged jackass, which is the only way of describing him. Like the first 100 pages of the book, I was like, God damn, when does this guy get kidnapped? He needs to get kidnapped now. But his family has a lot of money and they have a lot of connections. And one day, after he ends up, because you get the idea that he wasn't always this terrible because his best friend is this little nerd, but he's really been hanging out with all this new crowd that's terrible, and they really, really fuck with this one kid, Evan, who is just this small little like science geek, and it's very sad. But then he gets kidnapped by this guy who's convinced that Sayers is his long lost kidnapped son, and this guy's insane. And so then the middle part of the book, like middle 200 pages or so, we follow Sayers as he's kidnapped. And a lot of stuff happens there, and then eventually he does get out, and that's the last 100 pages of the book is him kind of trying to reconcile all of that, and how life is now, and how he can't just step back into who he was, and if he really wants to. It was very good. Like I said, very fast read, very fast read. It's got very short chapters, and it's very easy to read. It's very like, this is a quick situation. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't perfect, but I did really enjoy it. It was it was very good. Harrowing in a lot of ways. All right, so these are what I read and watched back there this last week. When it comes to what I'm keeping, I always keep my DVDs until I go through them and do a massive, purge. But honestly, I think I would have kept all 3 of these anyway. So obviously we're keeping the DVDs. When it comes to this, I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm keeping this. I bought a hardcover for a reason. It's because I had like a UK paperback and I wanted a hardcover, so I'm keeping this. However, I'm going to turn around and get rid of this. This was my original copy of Glamorama. This is the one that I read twice originally. Loved it both times, but now I have hardcover. All right, I am going to get rid of this one. I did love it, but I do think that it would be better served elsewhere. I'm going to keep this. And this happens a lot where I will read a Cassandra Clare book and then I'm like, I keep it, and then I go through like, do like a big unhaul of my books. I'm like, I'm getting rid of my Cassandra Clare, and we're doing it again. And then I'm going to get rid of Darkroom Etiquette. So I'm getting rid of 4 books, keeping 3, which is not bad. Let's talk about what I received. So first up, I did absolutely just go, because do you remember a little bit ago, I don't know if I go enough for this one, where I was just really pissed off because I had ordered a copy of The Hunted and it didn't come with a dust jacket. Well, I just ordered one by Amazon. I was like, fine. But this does now officially complete my Enemy series in hardcover with black sprayed edges, and all of them have dust jackets now. So that's nice. And then after reading The Golden Raven, I just went on Amazon and I bought like every book that Amazon said people who liked The Golden Raven liked. So we've got like You've Got Nothing Left to Prove by E.L. Massey, which is a male, I believe a hockey romance, which sounds fun. And then we also have from the same author Free from Falling, which is also a hockey romance, I believe. But then the main character falls in love with a lead singer of this band who is a trans woman, I believe. I don't know. I was in some kind of fugue state. There was a lot going on. I also picked up Horns for Hell by Rafael Nicolas, which I'm not sure what this is about, but it seems really kind of interesting. And I'm just gonna go in and see what happens. We have another hockey. There are a lot of male hockey romances for people that like All for the Game, I'm realizing. We have Untouchable Player by Emery Fox, which, again, hockey romance. And again, Caught Off Guard by Catherine Cloud, which I believe both ones in these are hockey. Now, I don't think all of for these ones, these three right here, I don't think both parts of the couple are hockey players. In this one, they are. So that's fun. And then we've got another male-male romance, but this one is, I think, just like people. Not saying that hockey players aren't people, but you know, A Series of Rooms by A.J. Barlow. So this is a whole bunch of indie stuff here, which is great. I love that. As an indie author, I do try to, you know, get my hands on a lot of indie published books, just because I feel like I'm supporting my own. So that's great. I did also pick up the second book in Cradle. This is Soulsmith. I read the first book on my Kindle, actually. I forget what it was called. It's called something. I read it very recently. I should remember it. But this is the sequel to that. Unsold. This is the sequel. I like the first one well enough. I liked how the main character was, so I picked this up. And then I had a pre-order come in, and that is The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. Love Stephen Graham Jones. I still have I Was a Teenage Slasher and The Age of Indian Likes It in the book wall. So here's another beautiful Stephen Graham Jones hardcover to sit in the book wall after I've pre-ordered it, because I did the same thing with those two. But we got red sprayed edges. It is gorgeous. I'm excited. Stephen Graham Jones can do no wrong. All right, then I did go to Barnes & Noble yesterday, and I picked up 4 books. The first one I picked up is H.P. Lovecraft, The Complete Collection. I read all of Clark Ashton Smith's stuff. It took me a couple months, but I think I finished it in January on Kindle. And I am curious because I've never read any Lovecraft. I know, but he's dead, so it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, it does, but like, he's not gonna profit. And I flipped through this, and oh my god, it's beautiful. Oh my god, it's beautiful. So I'll be reading this at some point. It's gorgeous, man. Ugh. So excited. I did also, on the sales table, I picked up the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Ancient Greece, mostly because it was on the sales table, and I was just kind of feeling some history and stuff, and I don't know, feeling some ancient Greece. So I did pick it up. I did also pick up, speaking of Cassandra Clare, Swordcatcher. I've seen this around, and I'm curious. I'm curious to see how she does with adult fiction, and I'm curious to see how she does with something that's not Shadowhunters, because this is both adult fiction and it is not related to the Shadowhunters in any way. And like, this woman has published dozens of books, but they're all Shadowhunters except for this series. So I figured I would pick it up and see what all the hubbub is about. And then also, last book here, The Salt Goes Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. I love Cassandra Khaw. I love Nothing But Black and Teeth. I love The Dead Take the A Train. And so I'm excited about this. I love These Deathless Bones. And so I'm excited about this. It's a cute little novella here. I feel like it's more, I think it's more like fairy tale situation, but I do have this. And so that's the book haul. Again, you know, the book haul shrinkage, not going great. But that is everything. That is this last week. What happened, what I read, what I watched, what I'm getting rid of, and what I received. We'll talk to you later. And goodbye.